Lacey stood at the altar, her smile as polished as the diamonds on her necklace. And for a moment, I believed my prayers had been answered. My son Daniel was finally marrying after years of false starts and heartbreak. The church in Knoxville, Tennessee, was filled with white lilies, the same flowers my late husband and I had chosen 35 years earlier when we said our vows. For a brief second, sitting there in the pew, I let myself believe this day was about love, family, and new beginnings. I am Eleanor Whitfield, 67 years old, a retired librarian, and a widow for almost 2 decades. My life has been quiet, simple, but not without sacrifice. From the life insurance money left after my husband passed, I had saved and scrimped $18,000, money I'd planned to use for medical bills and a little cushion in my later years. But when Daniel and Lacey needed help with the down payment for their house, I gave it to them without hesitation. That's what mothers do. The ceremony was beautiful. Daniel looked proud in his suit, and Lacey's dress shimmered like starlight. For a moment, watching my son slip the ring onto her finger, I thought maybe we could finally be a family again, whole and hopeful. But the reception told me otherwise. At the country club ballroom, after the music and the first toast, Daniel raised his glass. I want to thank everyone who made this day possible. My beautiful wife, our families, and of course my mother, who has always stood by me. Polite applause followed. I felt my chest warm with pride. Then Lacey stood. Her voice was bright, her smile dazzling as she looked directly at me. I also want to thank Eleanor. She's been living with us these past few months, teaching me what real loyalty looks like. Some mothers step back when their sons marry. Not Eleanor. She still sacrifices, still helps us financially, still takes care of her son, even now. There was silence. People glanced at one another, uncertain whether to clap. Lacey kept going. Sweet as syrup, but sharp as glass. It's truly inspiring to see a woman give so much of herself, even when she has so little left. The words hit like stones. The pride I had felt a moment earlier turned into heat crawling up my neck. She hadn't thanked me. She had branded me old, dependent, still pouring money into a grown man's life instead of living my own. I forced a smile, but inside I knew this wasn't gratitude. It was the beginning of something much darker. The next morning, when I walked into the kitchen, I found Lacey waiting with a notary at my table. And that was the moment I realized my humiliation was only the first act. The notary adjusted his glasses, shuffling papers with the precision of a man dealing cards. Lacey poured coffee into delicate porcelain cups, like this was nothing more than a polite morning meeting. "Good morning, Eleanor," she said, her voice bright. Too bright. "This is Mr. Harper from Silver Creek Legal. We just need to go over a few documents with you." I sat down slowly, keeping my hands steady on the table. After 67 years, I knew the scent of an ambush when it was right in front of me. "What kind of documents?" Lacey's smile never faltered. "Daniel and I have been talking. We love you, but we worry. This big house, the stairs, the kitchen. What if you fall? What if something happens when no one is around?" She set a hand on mine, her nails immaculate and cold against my skin. "We think it's time you move into Sunny Hills Assisted Living. It's such a lovely facility. They even have a library, Eleanor. You'll feel right at home." I pulled my hand back. "Sunny Hills?" "Yes," the notary said, sliding a packet across the table. "This agreement transfers the property into your son and daughter-in-law's names only. In return, your first year at Sunny Hills will be fully covered. After that," he cleared his throat. "Well, arrangements can be discussed then." 1 year. They wanted to buy out my life, my independence, for 1 year of nursing care I did not need. "What about the money I gave for the down payment?" I asked, my voice quiet but sharp. "Oh, Eleanor," Lacey said sweetly, "you mustn't think of it as money owed. Consider it a wedding gift. Isn't that what mothers do? Sacrifice for their children's happiness?" Her words twisted like a knife. My late husband and I had built that nest egg from nothing, and now she dismissed it with a smile. "And Daniel," I asked, Why isn't he here for this conversation? Lacey's expression didn't flicker. He thought it would be easier if I handled the details. You know how stressed he gets with finances. Newlywed stress, you understand. The notary looked at me kindly, almost apologetic. Mrs. Whitfield, I'll need your signature here, here, and here. I folded my hands in my lap, steady as stone. I'm not signing anything today. Lacey's smile froze, a crack flashing beneath the porcelain surface. Dorothy, she caught herself, corrected. Eleanor, this would be so much simpler if we just did it now. No, I said, standing. Not today, not ever, unless I decide it myself. The notary closed his briefcase, clearly relieved. But Lacey's eyes, hard, glittering, told me this battle was only beginning, and I had just refused her opening move. That night, after the notary left, I went to bed with a knot in my stomach. Something about Lacey's calm certainty unsettled me. She acted like she already knew how the story would end, like my refusal was just a pause before her victory. The next morning, as I reached into my purse for my reading glasses, my fingers brushed against a small orange bottle. I froze. The label was half peeled, but the name wasn't mine. Prescription pills. I had never seen them before. Lacey appeared in the doorway, her silk robe cinched perfectly at the waist. Oh, Eleanor, she said, her tone dripping false sympathy. You should have told us. About what? I demanded. She stepped forward, plucking the bottle from my hand. About these. Xanax, isn't it? No prescription in your name, though. How long have you been hiding this? Daniel is going to be devastated. My chest tightened. Those aren't mine. Her smile was thin, cruel. The court doesn't need to believe they're yours. They only need to believe you're unstable. Combine this with your forgetfulness, and we'll have no choice but to step in legally. Guardianship, Eleanor. Do you know what that means? Daniel will have control of everything. For your own safety, of course. I gripped the edge of the dresser to steady myself. Guardianship. That was more than moving me into Sunny Hills. It was complete legal control over my finances, my medical decisions, my life. Lacey leaned closer, her perfume cloying. Sign the papers now, and we don't have to go that far. Refuse, and I'll make sure the judge sees every little slip you've had. Every misplaced key, every repeated question, every so-called accident. She thought she had me cornered, but she underestimated one thing. I had been a librarian for 40 years. I lived in records, dates, details. My late husband had always said, Eleanor, you keep receipts for everything, even memories. That afternoon, while Lacey was at a salon appointment, I unlocked the fireproof box I had hidden in the back of my closet. Inside were the papers she thought I had forgotten. The original deed with my name beside Daniel's. The repayment agreement for the $18,000, clearly labeled as a loan. And most importantly, the conditional power of attorney, stating it only applied if 2 doctors declared me incompetent. I touched the papers with trembling hands, relief and fury rising together. She thought I was weak. She thought I was old, but she had no idea how long I'd been preparing for this kind of fight. By the time Daniel came home that evening, I was ready. I had my notebook in hand, the one where I'd been quietly recording every incident Lacey had fabricated. She was already in the kitchen when I entered, her hair still glossy from the salon. Did you think about what we discussed? She asked, slicing strawberries with perfect precision. I did, I replied, setting my notebook on the counter. And I realized something. You've been keeping a list of my supposed mistakes. So have I. Her knife paused mid-slice. I flipped open the notebook. March 11th, you told Daniel I left the stove on. Except that morning I used the toaster, not the stove. Her face remained still, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. March 24th, you claimed I forgot our dinner plans, except you canceled that very morning, remember? April 2nd, you whispered in church that I was struggling to follow conversation. The truth, you were whispering so low no one could hear you. I looked up. Every date, every false claim, I wrote them all down. And I've got witnesses, Lacey. Her pleasant smile cracked. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself, I said firmly. The kitchen door opened, and Daniel stepped in. He looked tired, his tie crooked. "What's going on?" Lacey seized the moment. "Your mother is accusing me again, Daniel. She's keeping notebooks, tracking me like a criminal." Daniel's eyes darted between us. "Mom, why are you doing this?" "Lacey is just trying to help." "Help?" My voice trembled, but it wasn't from fear. "She's trying to erase me. She's setting me up to look incompetent so she can take the house." Daniel shook his head. "That's not fair. She's worried about you. We both are. You guilt-tripped me into staying close after Dad died. You've always leaned on me too much, Mom. Maybe Lacey's right. It's time to let go." His words struck harder than any slap. My own son, repeating her accusations as if they were gospel. I steadied myself. "Daniel, I raised you alone after your father died. Yes, I leaned on you sometimes, but that doesn't mean I've lost my mind. And it doesn't mean I'll let your wife steal my independence." Lacey's voice dropped to a whisper, sharp as glass. "Keep talking like that, Eleanor, and the court will see exactly what I've been saying. In a month, you'll be declared incompetent." And for the first time, she wasn't even pretending to smile. The next afternoon, just as I was debating whether to pack a bag and leave, the intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Whitfield," the doorman said, "there's a woman here asking for you. Says her name is Margaret Cole." I frowned. Margaret was Lacey's mother. We had only exchanged polite greetings at the wedding. Why was she at my door now? When I opened it, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished woman in pearls and perfect hair. She looked weary, her eyes red-rimmed, as if she hadn't slept. In her hands was a casserole dish, still warm. "May I come in, Eleanor?" she asked softly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She placed the casserole on my counter and folded her hands. "I need to speak with you before it's too late." I braced myself. "Beth, if you're here to defend your daughter—" "I'm not," she interrupted. "I'm here to warn you." My breath caught. Margaret sat down at my table, the same one where her daughter had tried to strip me of everything. "Lacey has done this before," she said, her voice shaking. "Not exactly the same, but close enough. When she was in college, her roommate's grandmother accused Lacey of using her credit card. We smoothed it over, called it a misunderstanding. Then her first marriage ended because she drained her husband's accounts while convincing his parents she was managing the finances for their forgetful years." I stared, my stomach twisting. "And you never told Daniel?" Margaret shook her head. Lacey swore she had changed. I wanted to believe her. I thought marriage, stability, maybe even motherhood would tame her hunger for control. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "But watching her humiliate you at the wedding, then hearing about the notary, I knew she hadn't changed at all." She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is $18,000 in cash. Take it. It's what you gave them. Consider it repayment." I pushed it back across the table. I can't accept your money." "You must," she insisted. "It isn't charity, it's accountability. My daughter stole from you, and I can't undo that, but I can make sure you aren't left with nothing." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Press charges, Eleanor. It's the only way to stop her. She won't stop otherwise, not with you, not with Daniel. Not with anyone." I looked at the envelope, heavy with more than cash. It was a mother's desperate attempt to save what little integrity her family had left. And in that moment, I realized Margaret wasn't just my unexpected ally. She might be the key to ending Lacey's reign of deception. The courthouse in Knoxville smelled faintly of paper and dust, but to me, it smelled like justice. I sat on the wooden bench, my hands clenched tight around my folder of documents. The loan agreement, the deed, the medical evaluation proving I was sound of mind. Across the aisle, Lacey swept in wearing a pale blue maternity dress, her face carefully composed into a mask of innocence. Daniel trailed behind her, shoulders slumped, eyes fixed on the floor. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd raised, the boy who used to run into the library after school and beg me for adventure stories. Now, he looked like a man trapped in a nightmare he'd helped create. The judge entered, and the bailiff called the court to order. Lacey's lawyer stood, his voice smooth. Your Honor, my client is a devoted wife and soon-to-be mother. She acted only out of concern for her elderly mother-in-law, who has shown signs of confusion and instability. I felt the words like barbs, but I stayed calm. My lawyer rose. Your Honor, we will show not only that Mrs. Whitfield is fully competent, but that her daughter-in-law engaged in systematic elder financial abuse, including planting false evidence and attempting to coerce her into signing away property. The prosecution presented my doctor's signed statement. They displayed the email trail between Lacey and Daniel, where she called me the obstacle and urged him to move faster before refinancing falls apart. Daniel shifted in his seat, pale as chalk. Then came the witness, who stunned the courtroom, a woman in her 50s, wearing a nurse's badge. My name is Carol Jenkins, she said. I worked with Lacey Cole at Maple Grove Retirement Home 4 years ago. Residents began reporting missing cash and jewelry. We suspected staff theft. Lacey resigned abruptly before the investigation concluded. The room gasped. The judge leaned forward. Are you saying the defendant was implicated in theft from elderly residents? Yes, Your Honor, the nurse said firmly. Though charges were never filed, the suspicion was strong enough that she was quietly let go. I turned to see Lacey's mask shatter, her cheeks flushed crimson, her lips trembling. For the first time, she wasn't in control. My lawyer pressed the advantage. Your Honor, this is a pattern of exploitation. Mrs. Whitfield is not Lacey's first victim. She is simply the one who refused to stay silent. The judge's gavel struck once. Enough. The court will deliver its ruling. I gripped the bench, my heart pounding. After months of fear, humiliation, and betrayal, this moment would decide whether justice finally had a voice. The gavel struck again, sharp and final. Mrs. Lacey Cole Henderson, the judge said, his voice firm. This court finds you guilty of attempted elder financial abuse, fraud, and coercion. Your actions were not born of care, but of calculated greed. You are hereby sentenced to 20 months in state prison, 3 years of probation, and restitution of $18,000 to Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield. The words hung in the courtroom like a storm breaking. Lacey gasped, clutching her stomach as if the weight of justice had landed there. Daniel buried his face in his hands, shoulders shaking. For a long time, no one moved. I simply sat still, the folder heavy on my lap, my heart hammering with both sorrow and relief. Outside the courthouse, spring sunlight poured across the steps. Daniel caught up to me, his eyes red. Mom, he whispered, his voice cracking. I don't know what to say. You don't have to, I said softly. This isn't the ending I wanted for you, Daniel, but it's the one your choices brought. He nodded miserably. I thought she loved me. I thought we were building a future. You still can, I told him, laying a hand on his arm. But a future built on lies always collapses. Now you have a chance to build something real, with honesty, not illusion. Weeks after, I moved into a small cottage on the edge of the Smoky Mountains. The neighbors invited me for potlucks, and the sound of children playing drifted through the evenings. I planted roses in the yard, the way my husband and I once had, and for the first time in years, the soil felt like home. Daniel visited often. At first, he came broken, ashamed, but slowly, he began to find his footing. He spoke of the baby, my granddaughter, who would arrive into a world changed by truth. One afternoon, he placed the infant in my arms, tiny fingers curled around mine, impossibly fragile yet full of promise. Her name is Clara, he whispered. I wanted her to grow up knowing strength, not deceit. Tears blurred my vision as I kissed her forehead. That night, I wrote Clara a letter. I told her about love and betrayal, about courage and dignity. But most of all, I told her this: being older doesn't make you powerless. Standing up for yourself, no matter the odds, is the truest form of love. For yourself and for those who come after you. Because sometimes, the best revenge is not punishment, but living well, free, and unbroken.